They say that when you catch your partner cheating, it's like a bomb going off in your chest. Me? I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I waited. When I found one thing in my wife's gym bag on the evening she was supposed to be somewhere else, something inside me broke, but not in the way you think. No screaming, no fighting, no second chances. Just the cold, brutal truth served on a silver platter, right at her favorite expensive restaurant. By the time she realized what had happened, it was too late. This is the story of how I exposed my cheating wife, destroyed her fake perfect world, and walked away without looking back. But let's start at the beginning. My name's Caleb. I'm 40 years old, and I run a small but pretty solid electronics sales company in our town. It's nothing flashy, we're not rolling in millions, but it's steady, good work. I'm proud of it. For 3 years, I thought I had everything a man could ask for. A growing business, a good house. And Brittany, my wife, the woman I thought was my partner in all this. Brittany's 6 years younger than me. She's one of those women who walks into a room and every head turns, even if she's just picking up coffee. Blonde hair that catches the sun just right, bright blue eyes, and this way of smiling that could make you forget your own name. But she wasn't working. Brittany was a stay-at-home wife. She didn't have to work. I always told her, I got you. You don't need to worry about money. And I meant it. We didn't have kids, not yet. Anyway, it was something we were talking about, though now I realize she mostly just nodded whenever I brought it up. From the outside, everything looked fine. Scratch that, it looked perfect. We had a nice house on a quiet street, a backyard with a big oak tree, 2 cars, and enough money coming in that Brittany could buy herself new handbags or dresses whenever she wanted. I didn't mind. Hell, I was proud to be able to give her those things. That's why what happened hit me like a punch I never saw coming. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. I'd gotten home a little earlier than usual because I wrapped up some paperwork faster than I thought I would. Brittany had already gotten back from the gym, at least, that's where she said she was, and she was upstairs taking a shower. I remember I wanted some gum. Dumb, right? Something so small. But that's how it started. I knew she usually kept a pack of gum in her gym bag, so I went digging around. I found it, half a pack of spearmint, but when I reached in, I also pulled out this crumpled little piece of paper. Didn't think much of it at first. Figured it was an old receipt for bottled water or something. But something about it made me smooth it out and look closer. It was from La Riviera, a fancy restaurant right in the center of town. Date: 2 nights ago. Time: 7:12 p.m. My heart started beating faster. That was the night Brittany told me she was taking an extra-long hot yoga class at the gym that's 15 minutes from our house. La Riviera is nowhere near the gym. It's practically on the other side of the city. And it wasn't a cheap receipt either. 2 main courses, appetizers, and a bottle of wine. I stood there staring at it, my hands starting to shake a little. For a minute, I tried to come up with a reasonable explanation. Maybe she met her friend Lisa for a late dinner after yoga? Maybe she forgot to tell me? Maybe. Something. But deep down, I already knew. You just know when something shifts in your gut. She lied. Brittany looked me in the face that night, kissed me goodnight, and told me she was wiped out from hot yoga. I leaned against the kitchen counter, that crumpled receipt feeling heavier than a cinder block in my hand. A million little things started flashing through my mind. How she started going to the gym more often over the last couple of months. How she always took extra time getting ready, full hair and makeup just to sweat. The new dresses that showed up, tags still on, that I didn't remember her buying. Each memory was like another cut across my chest. I heard the water shut off upstairs. For a second, I panicked. Didn't want her to catch me standing there like an idiot, so I shoved the receipt into my back pocket, grabbed the gum, and slapped a fake grin on my face like everything was fine. She came downstairs wrapped in a towel, her wet hair hanging over one shoulder, looking every bit like the woman I had fallen in love with. She smiled at me, all bright-eyed and sweet. "Hey babe," she said, kissing my cheek. "Sorry I took so long. That class was brutal." I kissed her back. I even smiled. But inside, something had snapped. Not loud, not fiery. Quiet. Cold. Final. I knew I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more than a hunch. I needed to be sure. Because if Brittany was lying about this, about us, then the woman I thought I married didn't exist at all. And that was a hell of a lot harder to face than any receipt. After I found that receipt, you'd think I'd go straight into confrontation mode, right? But Brittany wasn't just a pretty face. She was slick. Real slick. If I stormed up to her waving a piece of crumpled paper, She would have spun it faster than a tornado in Kansas. Made me second-guess myself. Call me paranoid. Accuse me of being controlling. She was good at flipping the script when she wanted to. So, I kept my mouth shut. I acted normal. Smiled. Watched football with her curled up next to me on the couch, like nothing had changed. Kissed her goodnight, just like I always did. But inside, I was already making a plan. That night, after we had dinner, and she disappeared upstairs to take her usual long, steamy shower, I grabbed her phone off the kitchen counter. It was easy. Brittany always left it lying around when she was home. She had nothing to hide, or at least, she thought she didn't. I had done a little digging online earlier that afternoon. Watched a couple tutorials. Downloaded a tracker app. Something discreet. Nothing that would make her phone start glitching or acting weird. Took me all of 5 minutes to install it while she was singing some pop song off-key in the shower. Yeah, it felt dirty. Wrong. Like crossing some invisible line. But after that restaurant receipt, after all the little things that didn't add up, I had to know. I deserved to know. I finished setting it up just as the water shut off upstairs. Put her phone right back where she left it, screen face down. By the time she came downstairs in her robe, smiling and asking if I wanted to watch a movie, I was already miles away in my head. I told her I was tired and needed to finish some work. She shrugged, said, "No worries," and disappeared into the living room. I went into my office, locked the door, and pulled up the tracking dashboard on my laptop. Her location popped up like a blinking dot on a map. There she was, right inside our house, just like she should be. Good. That meant it worked. Now all I had to do was wait. The next day, I played it cool. Woke up, had breakfast with her, talked about weekend plans. She kissed me on the cheek and said she was off to the gym for her regular session. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I refreshed the tracker. Her little blue dot moved exactly where she said she'd be, Fit Nation Gym, on the other side of town. All right, I thought. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it was just a dinner with friends, and she forgot to mention it. But deep down, I didn't buy that. I watched her location for the next couple hours. Still at the gym. Then she drove to a nearby coffee shop. Met her mom, just like she told me she was planning. They sat there for a while, judging by how long the dot stayed parked. By the end of the day, I felt almost stupid. Maybe I really was paranoid. Second day, same deal. She said she was going to grab groceries. I tracked her the whole time. First the shops, then home. Nothing suspicious. Still, something didn't sit right with me. Call it intuition. Or maybe it was just that crumpled up receipt burning a hole in my mind. Day 3 started like every other day. She laughed about some show she was watching, kissed me goodbye, and said she was headed for another killer workout. I waited until her taillights disappeared down the street. Pulled up the tracker. Her little blue dot popped up, and immediately my blood ran cold. She wasn't headed to the gym. She was going west, away from the gym. I sat there staring at the screen like it might change if I blinked enough. 15 minutes later, she stopped moving. I zoomed in. She was parked by a hotel. Not a gym. Not a coffee shop. A damn hotel. 7 miles away from where she said she'd be. I grabbed my keys without thinking. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. I just knew I had to see it with my own eyes. I had to know for sure. The drive felt like it took a lifetime, even though it was only about 20 minutes. Every stoplight felt like it was mocking me. Every second ticked louder than a drum. When I finally pulled up a block away from the hotel, I cut the engine and parked behind a row of trees. I didn't see her car right away, figured she parked around the back, but the location on the tracker was dead on. I didn't know if I wanted to cry, or puke, or punch something. I didn't do any of it. I just waited. Waited for the lie to come walking out the front door. It wasn't the kind of place you book if you're just grabbing a drink or catching up with a friend. Nope. This place screamed money and secrecy. The parking lot was around the back. I couldn't see much from where I sat, just the side entrance and a few fancy cars lined up along the curb. The minutes dragged on. I kept refreshing the tracker app on my phone. Brittany's that hadn't moved. Still inside. Still right there. After about half an hour, the side door creaked open, and I saw her. Brittany. My Brittany. Wearing that tight little black workout jacket I'd bought her for Christmas, her blonde hair tied up in a perfect messy bun. She wasn't alone. Walking right beside her was a guy I had never seen before. He was tall, probably my height but thinner, wearing expensive-looking clothes, slim-cut slacks, a fitted white shirt with the sleeves casually rolled up. Designer sunglasses perched on top of his head. He had that clean, polished look, the kind that screamed, trust fund baby, or corporate executive. They were laughing. I sat there frozen, barely breathing, while they stood near the curb chatting like it was just another normal Thursday. Then he leaned in. And right there, under the gray afternoon sky, they kissed. Not some quick peck on the cheek either. A real kiss. The kind you save for someone you miss, someone you're excited to see. I felt my stomach turn inside out. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, telling myself not to do anything stupid. Not to jump out of the truck. Not to cause a scene. This wasn't the time. Brittany laughed again, that same laugh that used to light up my whole world, and then she pulled away, heading toward her car parked around the side. He walked off in the opposite direction, toward the far end of the lot where a black luxury sedan was waiting. I watched her drive off first, taillights disappearing down the street like nothing had happened. Then I saw him pull out a few minutes later, merging into traffic without a care in the world. Eventually, I started the truck. The drive home was a blur. I don't even remember turning down the streets or stopping at the lights. Just the steady hum in my ears and that sick, heavy feeling settling in my chest. When I pulled into our driveway, her car was already there. Of course it was. She beat me home, probably humming to herself in the kitchen, pretending like she'd just had a long workout. I sat in the truck for a minute, gripping the keys so hard they dug into my palm. Then I took a deep breath, shoved everything down, and got out. Inside, Brittany was in the living room, curled up on the couch in her sweatpants and hoodie, a throw blanket draped over her legs like she was exhausted from some heavy cardio. The TV was on low, playing one of those cooking competition shows she loved. She looked up at me and smiled. "Hey babe," she said, all casual, like nothing in the world was wrong. I walked over and kissed her forehead like I had 1,000 times before. She leaned into it, completely unaware that her entire house of cards was about to come crashing down. I sat next to her, watching the flickering images on the screen, pretending to be interested. Inside, I was somewhere else entirely. My mind was back at that hotel, watching her kiss another man like it was the most natural thing in the world. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Mostly, I just felt hollow. Like the life I thought I was living had been yanked out from under me, and now I was floating in some cold, dark place with no way back. Brittany leaned against my shoulder, sighing happily. I smiled at her. She smiled back. And right then, I made a promise to myself. If she thought she could live 2 lives, she was about to find out exactly how wrong she was. The next morning, after the fake smile and the fake evening on the couch with Brittany, I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. I run an electronics sales company. My days are packed, my evenings sometimes even busier. I didn't have the time or the energy to play amateur detective, lurking in parking lots and sneaking around corners. And honestly, I wanted everything to be airtight. No guessing. No accusations she could weasel out of. I wanted proof. So, first thing the next day, after Brittany left for one of her workouts, I made some calls. A buddy of mine from college, Mark, had gone through a nasty divorce last year. His wife had been stepping out on him too. He gave me the name of a private investigator he swore by, Mike Sullivan. I called Mike's number. Within 20 minutes, we were sitting across from each other at a small diner just off the main strip. Mike was in his 50s, gruff, built like a retired linebacker, but there was something sharp about him. The kind of guy who'd seen a lot and didn't scare easy. I told him everything. About the receipt, the tracking app, the hotel. He listened quietly, nodding now and then, sipping his black coffee. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You did the right thing calling me. If there's something going on, we'll find it." We settled on a plan. He'd document everything, photos, videos, timestamps. And if he caught anything, he'd send me reports daily. Walking out of that diner, I felt, not better exactly, but steadier. Like I'd finally taken the first step toward something real, toward the truth. The first day, nothing happened. Brittany went to the gym, then to Starbucks with her friend Lisa. Ran a few errands. Home by 4. Mike sent me a brief report, a couple blurry photos of her buying a smoothie and shopping for candles at HomeGoods. Day 2. Different story. Mike's email hit my inbox around 8 p.m. Subject line, activity observed. I clicked it open faster than you can blink. There they were, clear as day. Photos of Brittany, my wife, walking into the same hotel, arm in arm with the same guy I saw before, laughing, leaning into him like they were just another happy couple on vacation. There were time-stamped videos too. Short clips, maybe 30 seconds each. One of them showed Brittany playfully shoving him, laughing, as he pulled her close by the waist. No mistaking it. No friends catching up. No innocent explanation. They looked comfortable, natural, like they'd done it 100 times before. Mike stayed parked outside for 3 hours. Finally, they left. Separately, of course. This became the pattern. Twice a week, sometimes 3 if Brittany was feeling brave. Hotel meetups, walks through the park, holding hands, stealing quick kisses when they thought no one was looking. Coffee dates, afternoon strolls downtown. Mike caught it all. There was even a set of pictures where Brittany leaned into him on a park bench, her head resting on his shoulder, his hand tracing slow circles on her back. It wasn't just quick rendezvous behind closed doors. It was romantic, tender, like they were in some cheesy movie. Every night, Mike sent me new photos, new videos, new times, new places. I set up a private folder on my laptop, password protected, and saved everything carefully, organized by date and time. Every ping from Mike's email made my stomach twist a little tighter. I stopped wondering if she was doing it. The evidence was right there, cold and ugly. It became a question of how long it had been going on, and how much of my life with her had been a lie. At home, Brittany acted like everything was normal. She'd come back from her workouts, cheeks flushed, hair up in a ponytail, talking about how exhausted she was. The first few days, it was hard to even look at her. I kept seeing the pictures in my head. But after a week, something inside me started to settle. The hurt was still there, but a new feeling took its place. Focus. Control. I wasn't going to scream or beg or ask her why. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already thrown us away. I was going to gather every last piece of proof. I was going to stack it up until it was undeniable. Until even Brittany, with all her lies and charm, couldn't talk her way out of it. Mike kept working. I kept waiting. Brittany kept lying. She had no idea the clock was ticking. And every laugh, every fake kiss goodnight, every "I love you" whispered across the dinner table. I recorded them all silently in my mind. Because when the time came, I was going to make sure she saw exactly what she threw away. After about a month of gathering everything, I called a lawyer. His name was Todd Bennett. Todd came highly recommended. One of those no-nonsense divorce lawyers who had a reputation for being a shark in the courtroom. Exactly the kind of man I needed. We met in his office downtown. Leather chairs, thick carpeting, awards all over the walls. I laid everything out for him. The photos, the videos, the receipts, the tracker data, everything Mike had pulled together. Todd didn't even blink. He flipped through the manila folder, nodding slowly, his face unreadable. When he finished, he closed the folder, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "We've got her by the throat." He explained how we'd structure the divorce filing. No screaming matches. No dragged-out court drama. Just a cold, clean submission, complete with a mountain of evidence attached, making it crystal clear who broke the marriage. We drafted the paperwork over the next few days. It felt strange seeing our life broken down into legal language. Division of assets. Grounds for divorce, adultery. Exhibits A through Z. Strange, but necessary. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it to protect myself. And to make sure Brittany didn't spin her web of lies once everything hit the fan. When the documents were ready, Todd asked when I wanted to serve them. I could have done it right away. Could have walked into the house, slapped them down on the kitchen counter, and told her to get out. But that wasn't enough. Not after everything. I wanted her to remember the exact moment her little fantasy world fell apart. So I waited. I didn't have to wait long. The anniversary of the day Brittany and I first met was just around the corner. Every year, she made a huge deal about it, posting throwback photos, gushing online about how lucky she was, telling all her friends how perfect we were together. She had already started hinting about it a week early. "Maybe we should go somewhere special this year," she said one night while flipping through pictures of fancy restaurants on her phone. "I'll find the perfect place," she said another morning, kissing me on the cheek before heading off to the gym. I played along, nodded, smiled, let her plan. I even suggested a restaurant myself, La Belvita, a high-end Italian place downtown. She lit up when I mentioned it. "That's perfect," she squealed, throwing her arms around my neck. "You're the best." I just smiled and hugged her back. Inside, I was already picturing the scene. I wasn't planning some public screaming match. No flipping tables, no shouting across the dining room. No, my plan was quieter, sharper. I would let Brittany dress up, put on her makeup, wear that little black dress she reserved for special nights. I would let her soak in every second, thinking she had pulled it off, thinking she had the world eating out of her hand. And then, right when she was feeling most confident, most adored. I'd pull the rug out from under her. It wasn't about hurting her physically. It wasn't even really about revenge. It was about truth, making her face it, making her sit there in front of strangers, realizing that her lies had finally caught up with her. The day of our anniversary, Brittany spent hours getting ready. Hair, makeup, nails, outfit, the whole works. She floated around the house like a teenager getting ready for prom, humming to herself, smiling at her reflection in the hallway mirror. "You're going to love tonight," she said, batting her eyelashes at me. "I'm sure I will," I said, reaching for my keys. We drove to the restaurant together, her chatting nonstop about everything she wanted to do this summer, trips she wanted us to take, upgrades she wanted for the house. Every word out of her mouth felt like a slap, but I kept my hands steady on the wheel, my face calm. By the time we pulled into the valet line, Brittany was practically glowing. And I was ready. More ready than I'd ever been in my life. The valet opened her door first, and Brittany stepped out like she was walking a red carpet. She was stunning, I'll give her that. Little black dress hugging her just right, heels clicking on the pavement, blonde hair curled perfectly over her shoulders. She gave me that wide, bright smile, the same one that used to make my heart stop. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were the happiest couple in the world. We were led to our table, a small one near the window overlooking the downtown lights. The waiter pulled out Brittany's chair for her. She slid in, crossing her legs gracefully, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. I sat across from her, smiling just as wide. Outside, I looked like the same old Caleb. Inside, I was ice cold. The waiter handed us menus. Brittany barely glanced at hers, already chattering about the wine list, the desserts she wanted to try. I nodded, playing along, waiting. After a few minutes, Brittany excused herself to go to the restroom, taking her clutch with her. The second she disappeared around the corner, I flagged down the waiter. He was a young guy, maybe mid-20s, looking eager to please. I pulled out a crisp $100 bill, slid it across the table with a manila folder. "Listen," I said low and calm, "I'm going to order one meal. You'll bring it to me like normal. For my wife." I tapped the folder. "Bring this. Under a cover. Act normal. Open it like you're revealing a dish." "You got me." Inside were the divorce papers Todd had drawn up. Attached were clear, time-stamped photos. Brittany holding hands with her boyfriend, kissing him under the trees at the park, sliding into hotel lobbies like they owned the place. Page after page of proof. His eyes flicked from the money to the folder, back to me. He swallowed and nodded. "Got it, sir." "Good man," I said, sitting back. I ordered a ribeye, medium rare, and a bottle of red wine. By the time she got back from the restroom, all smiles and reapplying her lipstick, the folder was already in the waiter's hands. She sat down, flashing me that flirty look she used to give me back when we first met. "I can't wait for dessert," she said, twirling a lock of hair around her finger. "You'll get something sweet," I said, keeping my voice even. The waiter returned, pushing a covered silver tray between us with a practiced flourish. "Your meal, sir," he said, setting down my plate. "And for the lady," he added, placing the tray in front of Brittany. He lifted the lid with a dramatic little twist. No plate, just the folder. Brittany blinked. At first, she laughed nervously, reaching out with a perfectly manicured hand. She opened it. I watched her face closely. It was almost like slow motion. Confusion, flicker of curiosity, realization, and then pure, raw horror. Her eyes widened, her mouth falling open. She flipped through the first few pages, hands trembling. The color drained from her cheeks. Tears started falling almost immediately, running in fat, silent drops down her perfectly made-up face. She looked up at me, stunned, as if seeing me for the first time. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice breaking, "please, it's not what you think." I didn't answer. I picked up my knife and fork, calmly cutting into my steak. Brittany started crying harder. Real, chest-heaving sobs that made nearby diners start to glance over in curiosity. She pushed back her chair so fast it scraped loudly against the floor and stumbled toward me, the folder clutched against her chest. She dropped to her knees beside my chair, grabbing at my jacket. "Please, Caleb, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything," she wailed, tears soaking her cheeks. The entire restaurant was dead silent now, forks halfway to mouths, glasses poised in the air. I kept eating. Slow. Methodical. Chew. Swallow. Cut another bite. I barely looked at her. When I finished the last piece of steak, I placed my silverware neatly across the plate. I stood up slowly. Brittany was still kneeling there, sobbing into her hands. I pulled a $10 bill from my wallet, tossed it onto the table where it landed next to the now-forgotten folder. "Here's your price," I said quietly. "Sign the papers. See you in court." Then I approached the waiter, paid the bill, and left the establishment. Without another word, without a backward glance. The last thing I heard as I crossed the restaurant floor was Brittany's broken sobs echoing across the room. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. It felt good to breathe again. When I left that restaurant, I didn't drive home right away. I parked 2 blocks away, leaned back in my seat, and just sat there for a while, staring out at the city lights. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was something colder. Final. After about 20 minutes, I pulled out my phone. First call was to the bank. I froze every joint account we had together. Savings, checking, credit cards, everything Brittany had access to. I wasn't taking chances. Second call was to the locksmith. I told them to meet me at my house as soon as possible. I wasn't about to leave my front door open to someone I didn't trust anymore. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the locksmith's van was already there. It didn't take long, new locks on the front and back doors in under an hour. A small price to pay for peace of mind. While the locksmith worked, I gathered up Brittany's things. I didn't fold anything. Didn't pack a suitcase. I just grabbed her designer clothes from the closet, her mountain of high heels, her jewelry boxes, her fancy handbags, and dumped them all on the porch. It looked like a yard sale gone wrong. I didn't care. I dragged out her vanity mirror, her hairdryer, even the little decorative pillows she insisted on stacking on our bed. Every trace of her life in my house gone. I sat on the front steps and waited. It didn't take long. About an hour later, I heard the tires screeching as her car tore into the driveway. Brittany jumped out, mascara smeared all over her cheeks, her hair a mess, still wearing that little black dress from the restaurant. She was a wreck. "Caleb," she screamed, stumbling up the walkway. "Please. Let's talk. Please." I stood up, arms crossed over my chest, blocking the front door. "You have half an hour to pick up your stuff and get out of here," I said flatly. She froze, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then she started crying harder, rushing toward me. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "It didn't mean anything. I'll never see him again. Please don't do this." She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "Half an hour," I repeated, staring her dead in the eye. The look on her face, disbelief, panic, regret all swirling together, would have broken me once. Not now. Not after everything. I walked inside and shut the door behind me, leaving her out there on the porch with her pile of clothes and designer garbage. From the kitchen window, I watched her scoop up handfuls of stuff, tossing it into the backseat of her car between gasping sobs. When she was finally done, she stood there for a long moment, clutching the door, looking back at the house like maybe I'd changed my mind. I didn't. She got in the car and peeled out of the driveway without another word. Just like that, she was gone. The house felt quieter after that. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. 2 months later, we met again, this time in a courtroom. Brittany showed up dressed like she was auditioning for sympathy, a plain dress, no makeup, hair pulled back, trying to look humble, pitiful, like she was the one who'd been wronged. I sat there with Todd beside me, calm as ever. When the judge asked if there were any grounds for contesting the divorce, Brittany's lawyer stood up. "He was just a friend," she said, her voice all wobbly and full of fake sadness. "There's no concrete proof of anything." Inappropriate. Todd didn't even flinch. He stood up, opened a thick folder, and handed a stack of evidence to the court clerk. Photos, videos, location data. The judge leafed through the stack for a long time, adjusting his glasses, frowning deeper with every page. When he finally looked up, he wasn't smiling. "You expect me to believe this is just friendship," he said, his voice dripping with disbelief. Brittany shrank down in her seat, her eyes glued to the floor. The judge sighed and said that while the evidence showed serious misconduct, we didn't have direct proof of anything happening inside the hotel. Because of that, and because the law in our state was strict, he ordered a standard division of marital property. At first, I felt a flicker of anger. After everything, she still managed to skate around the full consequences. But then Todd leaned over and whispered, "Relax. She's about to find out what she really gets." See, Brittany never paid attention to details. Like the fact that the house was in my name long before we got married. The business too. The retirement accounts, the vehicles, all separate. The only things we officially bought together? Her car, a used compact that she insisted she needed. 2 TVs, a toaster, and a cheap bed frame from IKEA she picked out because it looked cute. That's it. That's all the joint property the judge could split. When the final decision was read, Brittany's mouth dropped open. She was awarded a small payout for her car, the 2 TVs, the toaster, and the IKEA bed. That's all. No house. No business profits. No alimony. Just a handful of junk she could barely resell. When the hearing ended, Brittany chased me down the courthouse steps. "Caleb, please," she cried, grabbing my arm. "I made a mistake. I love you. Please, can we fix this?" I pulled my arm away like she burned me. I didn't say a word. I just walked away, leaving her standing there in the sunlight, sobbing into her hands. No more glamorous life for Brittany. No more fancy handbags and designer dresses. No more pretending. Just reality, cold and heavy. Exactly like she deserved. 2 days after the court hearing, just when I thought I could finally start breathing easy again, I heard a knock at the door. It was early evening. I just finished putting away some leftovers and was thinking about sitting out on the porch with a beer. At first, I thought it was a delivery guy. But when I opened the door, there she was. Brittany. She wasn't wearing makeup this time. No designer clothes, no jewelry, no perfect Instagram smile. Just a plain t-shirt, worn-out jeans, and a broken look on her face that I hadn't seen before. The second she saw me, she dropped to her knees right there on the front porch. Hands clasped together, tears already streaming down her face. "I miss you. I'll do anything. Please, please just talk to me." Her voice cracked halfway through, like she couldn't even believe what she was saying out loud. I stood there for a moment, just looking at her. This was the same woman who used to walk around like she was too good for everyone. The same woman who smiled behind my back while holding someone else's hand. Now she was begging at my feet like a scene straight out of one of those cheesy Hallmark movies she used to force me to watch. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to scream at her, to list every single moment she made me feel like a fool. But I didn't. Instead, I did the only thing that felt right. I looked her in the eyes, really looked, and then I closed the door in her face without saying a word. I locked it behind me and walked away. I didn't stand at the window to watch her leave. I didn't wait to see if she knocked again. I was done. The weeks after that were strange. Quieter. Some days, the house felt almost too big, too empty. I focused on work. Spent more time with friends. Started going fishing again, something I hadn't done in years. Slowly, the tight knot in my chest started to loosen. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I met Emma. I wasn't even looking for anyone. It just kind of happened. I was at a buddy's backyard barbecue, trying to mind my own business, when she came over with a plate of ribs and a shy smile. She wasn't flashy like Brittany. Didn't have fake lashes or a picture-perfect pose for every moment. Emma was real. She laughed with her whole face. She told dumb jokes and didn't care if she spilled a little barbecue sauce on her shirt. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. It felt different right away. Easy. Honest. We started seeing each other a couple times a week. Just simple things, coffee dates, hiking trails, movie nights. No games. No drama. No lies. A few months later, she moved in with me. The house felt like a home again. One Saturday afternoon, Emma and I were walking through the mall, looking for a new coffee maker. We were laughing about something, I can't even remember what, when I caught a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head. There she was. Brittany. Wearing a blue janitor's uniform with the name of the store stitched across the front pocket. She was standing inside one of the big department stores, a spray bottle in one hand, a dirty rag in the other, wiping down the glass from the inside. For a second, our eyes locked. She froze, the rag slipping from her fingers onto the floor. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Lost. No makeup. No fake smile. Just raw regret written all over her face. Emma squeezed my hand, glancing at me like she was about to ask if everything was okay. I smiled at her, squeezed back, and kept walking. But just before we passed the store, I turned slightly toward Brittany and said, loud enough for her to hear, "Hi, Britt. The uniform looks good on you." I didn't stop. I didn't wait for her reaction. I just kept walking, Emma's hand in mine, feeling lighter with every step. I never saw Brittany again after that. And honestly, I didn't need to. Because sometimes, the best kind of closure isn't about getting revenge or making someone hurt the way they hurt you. Sometimes, it's just living a life they no longer get to be part of. A life they threw away with their own 2 hands. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done at the restaurant if you were the one sitting across from Brittany? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.